Here's a scary truth about staying inside of your comfort zone. In other words, how to be uncomfortable and still do it anyways, how to get unstuck and how to get out of your head so you're not dead, so you can start living and producing results that matter. Let's go. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Subscribe, send this to someone, and if this is helpful for you, you got to go do something with it. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this. So, comfort. Comfort is where dreams go to die. A lot of people stay comfortable. Comfort leads to complacency. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You lose a lot of weight, you do all this work, take a few months to just stay focused and you're grinding, and you kind of get to this point where you're like, oh my gosh, I can breathe, whether that's making money, whether that's reconnecting with your children, whether that's developing more spiritual connection with God. And you see this happen in all phases of life. Then something happens. You come out of this climb where you're committed and you're grinding, and you hit this point where you like, just take a deep breath. And you get comfortable. The problem is when you get comfortable and you stay comfortable, you're not grinding. You're not working. And when you're not grinding and you're not working, comfort turns to complacency. And complacency, after a while, it turns into what we call a crash, right? You start to go downwards. And when you've been living in a crash for a while because you're not grinding, you took your foot off the pedal, you're comfortable, comfort now turns into complacency. Complacency sends you in a crash dive, and all of a sudden that crash turns into a crisis. A lot of people have been there. I've been there too. So I want to share with you like things that are going to help you to be uncomfortable and do it anyways. In other words, how to unstuck yourself. Number one, consequence. Now, what I challenge you to do is write down what is the consequence if I continue to do what I'm doing. So for example, if you've got a pretty lousy diet and you're eating junk food every day, like you might not feel it now because maybe you're young. Maybe you got a good metabolism. Maybe you're working a lot of hours and moving. But the consequences and the truth of staying on your current path and trajectory is what? The big R word, regret. There are people that are super talented, that are super wealthy, but they don't have the work ethic. So when they stay comfortable, they don't think about this, what I call the default future. The default future is the inevitable. If you're like Thanos, it's inevitable. The inevitability of if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're going to get. And most people, their comfortable, complacent lives is going to lead to regret. You don't want that. I promise you, you don't want the consequences, even though you can't see them now. It's like there's a phrase that says, the day we plant the seed is not the day we eat the fruit. But if you plant the seeds of complacency and comfort, which turns into a crash and a crisis, down the road, you find yourself older, not financially well off, not physically fit, not spiritually connected, and you're wondering what the heck happened? I'm 25, 26, 27 years old. This is not the life I wanted. And sadly, there's some people who are in their 40s that are like, I'm stuck. So first thing is you got to get clear about what I call the consequences. Number two, get clear about the future. Simple. What do I want? What do you want? Now, if you can start to look at, I don't want the regret, but I do want this. And you've got to build this want to be so big. You have to start to think, okay, for example, let's say you want to be a business owner and you start a business. And when you started out to be a business owner, it wasn't that you wanted to be a business owner. You wanted what's behind being a business owner. Freedom, time freedom, ultimately financial freedom, because you don't want to work for the man. And what's behind freedom and time freedom and developing is possibly like a lot of freedom to travel and freedom to make moves without having to ask for permission to go watch your son's game or your daughter's recital. So if you can get clear about the future, what is it that I want and what's behind that? We call that the why. Why does that matter? What's that going to give you when you become that? So the first thing is just get real clear about consequences. I love what Jesus said. The truth will set you free. Tell the truth. There is an oppositional power. There's a resistant power out there that doesn't seek to hurt you or maim you. It wants to destroy you, wants to kill you, and wants you to be miserable. So if it can get you to not do the work and ignore the consequences, it fools you. But now You're not going to be fooled because you're looking at the future consequence, or what we call the default future. Number two, instead of doing that, what is it that I really, really want? What do you want? Like, what's the future? What's the lifestyle? What's the money? What's the fulfillment, the work? With those two things in place, we're now ready for step number 3. Talk it out. No, this sounds kind of crazy, right? You can write it out, but something happens when you actually talk it out. See, a lot of times we stay stuck and in our comfort zones because in our minds, we are making up a story that is not true. What if I fail? What if I'm no good? What if my social media content doesn't land? What will they say about me? Well, what if I fail? Then what? Nothing. I'll never forget February 2008. The recession was upon us. This was a long time ago. And I was in the mortgage industry. And I was dreading February 1st, 2008. Why? Because I didn't have money to make the payroll. I didn't have money to pay the bills. I didn't have any money to do anything. And in my mind, it was like Armageddon, end of days, Y2K, I was going to die. I don't know why I thought that, but that's what was going on in my mind, and it was so real. So February 1st, right, 2108 came and went, and I was like, oh, I'm still alive. It's not as bad as I thought. This is why I say talk it out, write it out. If I take action on what I want and I fail, then what? And you suffer more in here than you suffer in real life. You suffer more in here in imagination than what reality is. Why? Because the mind has a funny way of making up stories. I know athletes, they're so anxious around conditioning, and they're anxious around practice, and it seems like a lot of kids today are anxious around everything. Well, that's because you're living in your head. And in sports, we have a phrase that says, if you're in your head, you're dead. That's why you hear coaches say, get out of your head. Get out of your head and get onto the table, put everything, say it out loud, talk it out, write it out, being like, okay, here's the consequences I don't want. Here's what I want. Okay, I like that. And here's the truth. Let me say what I'm feeling and experiencing right now. You want to get unstuck? Tell the truth. I'm afraid. There's a scene in Rocky 3. Sylvester Stallone, Mr. T's in there. Carl Weathers or Apollo Creed, and Rocky goes to train with Adrian, with his wife Adrian, and they're going to train with Apollo Creed. You should go watch this Rocky 3. It's an awesome movie. Old movie, but man, I grew up on Rocky. And Rocky's just struggling to train with Apollo Creed. And he's not into it, and he's in his head, and you can just tell like he got his butt kicked by Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. I mean, he got knocked out. He got obliterated. His trainer, Mickey, dies, and he's in his head. So after all this training, the swimming, the jabs, there's a scene where he's running on the beach with Apollo Creed, and he just stops. And Apollo Creed looks back, and he's like, dude, it's over. It's over. And Sylvester Stallone sitting there on the beach, and his wife walks up, and they start to have this talk. And she's like, what is it? And he's beating around the bushes. He's dancing around there. He's walking on eggshells. And she finally just confronts him. What? Tell me the truth. And he finally just says, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. To get that out, just to say it, it's not as bad in real life as it is in your head. This is like the young child who thinks there's a boogeyman under his bed. There's no such thing, but in his head, it's going on, so it's like it's real. This is like someone who's like, I don't want to go approach the pretty girl and ask her, because what if she says no? Oh my gosh, that would be the end of the world. No, it wouldn't. She would just say no. It'd be like you going and applying for a job and you're afraid that they're going to say no, so you don't even apply for the job. But if they say no, then what? Nothing. They said no. You see, you're making up stories. And see, inside of what we call Game Changer Elite, this is our Game Changer community, GCX. We teach you how to use tools to overcome these things. Now, the consequence, the future desired result, as well as, like, say it. What are you really feeling right now? And you're going to discover that most of this is made up. So I invite you, take out your journal, write it down. What's the consequences if you don't get out of your head and don't get unstuck and you stay stuck? Number 2, what do you really want? What are you really working for? Because ultimately, you're going to end up somewhere. I mean, when I'm shooting this right now, I could look at the date and time of this. 10 years ago, this didn't exist. But here I am in my living room on a camera shooting a YouTube video. I'm here because I'm deliberate and intentional. Yes, you're going to end up somewhere. Make sure that you end up where you want to end up because you decided to get clear about that future. And then every time you face opposition and being stuck, say it out loud. What are you feeling right now? What are you thinking? And you're going to discover as you say things out loud what you're feeling, what the facts are, what's real, what's raw, what's the emotion. You're going to discover that most everything in your life that's stopping you is a made-up story right here. And I'll give you the tools inside of our Game Changer community, which I invite you to join us. There's a link in the description. Join us. Join us on the monthly call where we have live engagement with people just like you. And there's coaching and there's mentoring, again, with the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we've coached over the last 12 to 15 years. We can help you to get unstuck, to get clear, to get a sense of purpose and direction, to figure out the right plan and strategy to get you to where you want. So click on the link in the description, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone, and take this on. What are you making up in your head right now that's slowing you down and or stopping you? What story are you making up right now that's preventing you from taking action, which is going to give you a consequence in the future that you don't want to face, where you can pivot to, here's what I really want, and you can continue to be real about what it is that's slowing you down. I invite you right now, register for the free live class, subscribe to this, share it with someone, and until next time, get out of your head, because if you're in your head, you're dead, and get out of your head, start living. That's it, my friends. Appreciate you watching. Whoop, I'm out.
Let's go. See, it's more than the game that we changing. We don't do it for the block, do it for the name. Yeah. No, there ain't no stopping it. If you really want it, better rock with it. This is how to be a game changer.